Let's bring in Congressman Roger Williams, a Texas Republican and a survivor of the 2017 congressional baseball mass shooting. The Congressman here with us this morning. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
You bet.
All right, so first off, I do want to talk about what happened. And this is a question that I've asked of so many people, as they do remember exactly where they were when they found out about this shooting and will likely remember for decades to come. So how did you find out about former President Trump being shot? And essentially, what were you thinking when you saw that video that actually showed it?
Well, I was in Texas, and I was going to have a conference call with some of my staff, and I got a call from one of my chief of staff of the Small Business Committee, which I chair, and told me what was happening. I immediately got on TV and, of course, saw what we all saw, and it really concerned me because it took me back to 2017 during the baseball shooting that we had, where I was wounded and Steve Scalise was shot, and several others, and it just took me back to that, and could imagine what people around there were thinking, what he was thinking, and it just shows too the hate and the anger in this country right now is at a fever pitch, and we've got to find a way to turn it down. I don't know what it's going to do. We've got conventions coming up this week and so forth, but it just shows that we were very divided in our country, and it's going to have to change at some point in time.
And you did talk a little bit about it, but can you break down for me what happened back in 2017 at the congressional baseball game?
Well, we were practicing for the baseball game, and myself, I was hitting ground balls to Steve Scalise, and I hit a ball to him, and right after that, a sound went off, and much like a lot of people say, they thought it was a car backfiring, but then shots started ringing out, and we all went immediately to a place we could find safety. In my case, it was a dive in the first base dugout. That was a real dugout that was about 6 foot deep in the ground, and I dove into it like it was a swimming pool with no water to get protection, and I got wounded in the leg from shrapnel. And we were in there about 10 minutes, and it was the Arlington police came and, of course, killed the perpetrator. But there again, it was after they killed him, they found out he wanted to kill Republicans. He had names of people he wanted to kill. And it was the same kind of personality we have now, driven by hate and anger. And, and people will say, well, did it bring a come by moment back to Congress after the baseball shooting? And I said, absolutely not. Lasted about 2 days. We were back to where we were, and I'm not so sure that right now this event with President Trump is not going to do the same thing. Certain people are worried about him, as they should be, but those that see it a different way are going to be driven by hate and anger again, and here we go. So it's an interesting time we're in, but it's one we've got to fix somehow.
As a Republican congressman, what does it mean to you to see how quickly the Democrats, Republicans, everyone, independents came together to condemn the violence and post on social media, put out statements? What does that say to you, and what does it mean to you?
Well, what it says is people probably do care. Nobody wants to see what we saw yesterday ever happen in this country. And so there were some really good statements. I saw some pretty bad statements too, which again is the division of our country. Look, this is the United States of America. We got the greatest country in the world. We got the greatest people in the world. We got the greatest law enforcement in the world. We got the greatest ability to elect people to political office and do it fair and square. We need to get back to this and not have this hate and vitriol that we've got. We've got to be able to somehow agree to disagree, but in the interim, we have to be aware. I've had so many people call me and say, Roger, I don't know if I can get involved in politics anymore, but I've had more call me and say, how do I get involved? How do I help somebody? How do I run for office? How can I get involved and save my country? And that's encouraging.
Do you expect that Trump is going to stop his political campaign events as a result of this? I mean, we know that after this all happened, he did make sure to get up. He's bleeding from the side of his face, but holds up his fist to let everyone know that he is okay. He's not the kind of person to shy away from things like this. So do you think he will put a pause on any of his campaign events?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if there's a pause, it's certainly not going to be generated by President Trump. That's for sure. This guy's a fighter. This guy's a winner. He's a patriot. He loves his country. And I go back again to the baseball shooting. The night that night of the shooting, I was in the hospital, and President Trump called me to check on me and to say, should we play the baseball game the next night? And I said, absolutely yes. He said, well, that's what we're going to do. So I've seen it firsthand in his ability to lead and proceed and get after it. And I think that if anything's canceled, it won't be him. But I doubt we'll see too much of a interruption in his campaign.
We did hear from House Speaker Mike Johnson, who said there will be an investigation, a probe, testimony will take place because attendees are claiming that they were trying to let the Secret Service and other law enforcement know that a gunman was crawling around on a roof, but no one seemed to listen. I imagine lawmakers on both sides of the aisle will want an investigation, correct?
No question. And what we hear about that is concerning, right? I mean, if you see somebody with a rifle, for crying out loud, climbing a building, something ought to be done about it. And I don't know enough, and nobody knows enough to say what happened, what didn't happen, who's responsible, who's not. But yeah, there needs to be an investigation, because anytime you have a shooting like this, you certainly want to find out how it happened, why it happened, and make sure it never happens again.
What role does social media play in all of this? Because we know that folks will get behind the keyboard, they'll start posting photos of random people and say, this is the gunman, this is the gunman, and posting incorrect information. So how difficult is it just to know that all of that misinformation is out there?
Well, it's out there, and social media does allow people to make things up and say things they don't know, say things they may not even believe, and accuse and so forth. So it can be a problem. I think everybody needs to dial it back to the best they can and let law enforcement work and see exactly what happened and not get ahead of ourselves, because that can create problems too. But that's the world we live in. So I would just say, unless you know what you're talking about, don't talk about it, and let's learn about it.
Yeah, because like you said, I definitely saw some messages that were horrible yesterday there on
Yeah.
social media, and it is hard to see that. What question or questions do you hope will be answered soon about all of this? Because this is an active FBI investigation, so only so much can be released. But what questions do you have?
Well, again, we want to know what's the background of the perpetrator, what might have made him do this. If he was climbing a building with a rifle, why didn't we stop him before that happened, before the event happened? And you can think of a lot of questions afterwards, but I think the biggest question is, how can we fix this to where it doesn't happen again, where our elected officials are protected properly, where people are aware and not afraid? And I think that's a big point. And get back to some normality we can, so people aren't afraid to run for office, or people aren't afraid to put themselves out there and express their ideas, because that's what built this country. That's why America's great, because it's a land of ideas and a land of disagreement, but at the same time agree to disagree and come up with answers and move the country forward.
And you kind of already touched on this, but my last question for you, what message do you want to make sure gets across to people who are watching right now?
Well, the message is, look, don't be afraid of America. Don't, but be concerned for America. Do what you can to make it better, not what you can do to make it worse. And also realize that the people here we need that are coming need to solidify themselves in the American way and not challenge it and reap the benefits of the American dream, which is probably which is under attack right now. So I would hope people would say, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to help people get involved. And I'm going to make sure that this country continues to be the greatest in the world, because at the end of the day, a country is only good as its people. A country is only good as the rules that it has, and the rules and the laws are to be followed by the people. Select good leadership that represents you, and be involved and have a smile on your face.
All right, Congressman Roger Williams, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and discuss this a little bit further. Is there anything else that you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
Well, I think we all should pray for President Trump, his quick recovery, and pray for President Biden also that he can continue his campaign, and will, and let the people hear the difference between the two, where they want to take the country, and do it with an open mind and not a hateful mind, and keep America great, keep America the best. Because I'll tell you, at the end of the day, our enemies are watching everything that's going on in this country right now. They see disarray, they see hate and anger, and that's not a winning combination. We're the greatest country in the world. We can get back on the right track real quick, and we should try to do it. Every one of us should chip in and say, I'm going to do what I can to make this country the best it can be.
Great words there. Congressman, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you. God bless.